Hello fellow YouTube friends, followers, fools and flabbergasters, my name is Mason and it's time for another easy PvE build guide. Today's build of choice is Condition Virtuoso. Condition Virtuoso is a build that is simple to play and provides very consistent damage with high range, that allows you to freely position yourself and maintain your damage output even when mechanics force you into range. There are two variants that you can play. The Chaos variant deals lower damage than dueling, but provides boons to allies around it in return and is easier to execute well. Through that, it's also able to provide many important boons to itself in open world gameplay. Might, stability, aegis, regeneration, fury and protection. This makes it a very strong and straightforward choice for open world gameplay in general. Now before we start with the rotation guidance, let's begin with a quick rundown of how Virtuoso works. What distinguishes Virtuoso from other Mesmer specs are blade skills. Blades replace clones and related traits one-to-one with the exception that they are not linked to the target they are used against. Every blade stocked remains above you as a floating dagger, empowering your shatter skills. Natively, you stock one blade every 10 seconds when you're out of combat. Through the trait Bloodsong on Condition Virtuoso, you will stock a blade on every 5th stack of bleeding you apply. Paired with Jagged Mind and Sharper Images on dueling, you will stock up blades very fast. This interaction, though, relies on critical hits with blade skills, making precision and other sources of critical chance an important stat on Virtuoso. In terms of weapon skills, we're going to use the dagger on both weapon bars. Dagger is a very strong ranged weapon where all 3 skills that it includes are blade skills. This isn't a surprise given that it's the weapon that comes with the specialization Virtuoso. Dagger is used on both Chaos and dueling, but the offhand options vary. On the Chaos variant we're going to use Torch for the skill The Prestige, so Torch 4. This is instant cast and 3 damage. More explanations below in the rotation section. The two offhand choices for dueling are Sword and Focus because they include Phantasm skills with the highest single target damage, Phantasmal Warden and Phantasmal Swordsman. Alright, let's begin with rotation guidance on the two variants. In terms of utility skills, note that I use Rain of Swords instead of Signet of Illusions to simplify the rotation. This increases your cleave damage a little and costs a little bit of single target damage. Signet of Illusions allows you to reset your blade songs, making it a slight DPS increase when timed well. The Chaos variant includes a very simple rotation that camps Dagger and Torch and involves using the following skills on cooldown. Unstable Blade Storm, Blade Call and Rain of Swords, Blade Song Sorrow and Blade Song Harmony. You will only want to use these with 5 blades active. The same applies to Blade Turn Requiem. This one and the elite skill 1000 Cuts are instant cast skills and can therefore be used during other skills. Aside from that, there's really only one thing you need to pay attention to, as your damage on Chaos scales with having Chaos Aura active. In the build you don't really have many sources for it, but you have two. Blade Song Sorrow, so your Blade Song number 2 triggers it due to the trait Illusionary Membrane. Second, you can gain Chaos Aura by using a blast or leap finisher inside an ethereal field. Your heal skill Mantra of Recovery paired with the Prestige does exactly that. Mantra of Recovery places an ethereal field every other cast due to the trait Method of Madness, and the Prestige is a blast finisher with a 3-second delay. The two skills share the same cooldown, so you can always pair them. When it comes to the Prestige, note that it always puts you into stealth, so press another skill right after to not disrupt your rotation. As I said right in the beginning, the Chaos variant is lower damage than dueling, but is very easy to execute well. So if you want a very simple and good entry point for Virtuoso and instance content, this could be the way to go. Now, in contrast to Chaos, the dueling variant involves a full rotation flow that anchors on Phantasms and resetting them with the heal skill Signet of the Aether, Phantasmal Warden and Phantasmal Swordsman. In turn, we have 2 sections in the rotation after the opener. In the entirety of the rotation, use the same skills as in the Chaos variant on cooldown. Now the concept of the opener is to cast your damage skills as fast as possible while casting your damaging blade songs with 5 blades. Start on Sword with Unstable Blade Storm, Phantasm Swordsman and Blade Turn Requiem. These will stack up blades fast on their subsequent hits, allowing you to use Blade Song Harmony and Blade Song Sorrow quickly after this. Then swap to Focus and follow the general rotation concept. On the first cycle on Focus, you start with Phantasmal Warden, then reset it with Signet of the Aether and use another Phantasmal Warden. After that, try to reset casts of Phantasmal Warden via Signet of the Aether to maximize the damage output. Now, the cooldown of Signet of the Aether is longer than the total rotation cycle. It will therefore be available in different points in the rotation. Once the cooldowns diverge so much that you cannot reset Phantasmal Warden anymore, resetting Phantasmal Swordsman instead is completely fine. And that brings me to the sword section. Always start and end the sword section with Phantasmal Swordsman. This will maintain stacks of Fencer's Finesse through large parts of the rotation. In case you reset Phantasmal Swordsman with Signet of the Aether, use 3 casts of Phantasmal Swordsman in one rotation. If you do this, it would slightly extend the duration of the full rotation cycle. That's basically all there is to it. It's pretty simple in concept, but takes some time to get used to. Okay, let's talk about CC skills for breakbar damage. There's 2 skills you have on both variants readily available: Bladesong Dissonance and Signet of Domination. Bladesong Dissonance for maximum CC potential should of course be used with as many blades as possible. Signet of Domination is a special case because using it costs you condition damage. Therefore, you shouldn't really be prioritizing this for CC damage, but once you realize that your group might fail a breakbar, don't hesitate to use this. Even if it costs you some personal DPS, it will increase group DPS noticeably. Okay, moving on to gear. Gear on Condition Virtuoso is always a little bit special because you have the focus on precision and critical chance on top of the usual focus on condition damage and condition duration. The gear I suggest here allows you to easily swap between the 2 variants, so Chaos and Dueling, with a minimal DPS loss. In general, we want to maximize condition damage while reaching 100% critical chance and 100% duration on bleeding. In order to get there, we need 60% critical chance in the hero panel and 23% overall condition duration. With the trait Quiet Intensity, reaching 100% critical chance with Fury is easy. Reaching the remaining 77% on bleeding differs between the Chaos and the Dueling variant. On the Chaos variant, Superior Rune of the Crate, the traits Sharpening Sorrow and Chaotic Persistence provide the remaining 77% for bleeding. On the Dueling variant, you do not have the trait Chaotic Persistence. For that reason, a Relic of the Aristocracy replaces Relic of the Fractal to cover the loss in expertise. I also made sure that the gear that I use allows you to use standard food with condition damage and expertise in it and does not require any infusions to reach 100% critical chance. The damage difference compared to the ideal gear setup is statistically insignificant in actual gameplay. For a budget variant, you can replace all Ascended armor pieces with rare or exotic pieces. Note that you will need to replace some pieces of Sinister with Rampagers to make up for the loss in precision that way. In terms of traits, we're simply using what yields the highest damage for each variant. On Chaos, we lose a little bit of strike damage and the burst damage through the bleeding on critical hits of Phantasms. In return, Bountiful Disillusionment and Metaphysical Rejuvenation will make you share boons with allies whenever you use a healing or a shatter skill. Okay, you should now have a basic understanding on how the 2 variants for instance content work. Let's move on to the open world build. For open world, it can make sense to make a build more forgiving so that you can sustain on your own. As always, I will now suggest ways to do that with cost efficiency in mind. Now, for general open world gameplay, using Chaos improves boon coverage, especially for protection, making the build more resilient. In order to get there, we're going to swap to Chaotic Transference and Illusionary Defense in Chaos. For general sustain, Jagged Mind will always heal you for a fraction of the damage you deal, rewarding an offensive playstyle. As for the healing skill, we will swap to Twin Blade Restoration. Twin Blade Restoration heals you for large amounts, includes 2 blade hits and grants Aegis, which is particularly strong against tougher enemies. On top of that, use Distortion in cases where you might need it for long-lasting invulnerability and area stability. For additional survivability, you can use Survivability Food and a utility item for another minus 10% damage taken and up to 220 toughness. If all of those adjustments are not enough for you, you can replace the Viper pieces in the build with Celestial and Sinister pieces with Rabbit, which gives you additional concentration, toughness, healing power and vitality, while retaining the level of precision and expertise for functionality of the build. Since we're using Chaos in open world and we do not rely on casting Phantasms for functionality, you can use any offhand you like with this build. My personal preference is a sword because it includes self-might coverage in open world and another block. For a discussion on additional options, check out the written article. Okay, moving on to boon coverage. First off, we're using Signet of Inspiration here. This extends all boons on you by 3 seconds. It's crucial for self-boon coverage, so use this on cooldown. The most important defensive boon is Protection. Protection is covered by swapping out Method of Madness for Illusionary Defense and using Twin Blade Restoration on cooldown with a Relic of Durability. The Relic of Durability also helps covering Regeneration, which is a crucial boon for damage and boon coverage in open world due to the trait Chaotic Persistence. Paired with Metaphysical Rejuvenation and Chaotic Transference, you will cover a good uptime on regeneration on yourself. Due to the reliance on critical chance on Condi Virtuoso, Fury is also essential. And that is also one reason why we make use of the utility skill Psychic Force. You have 3 sources of Fury: Bladesong Sorrow, Psychic Force and Bladesong Dissonance. Use these on cooldown to cover Fury on yourself. The build does not natively cover 25 might stacks, but a few might stacks are covered by Bladesong Harmony. For more might, you can make use of Phantasmal Force and Illusions and use a sword with Phantasmal Swordsman. If you want to solo harder content, you can also make use of Jade protocols. These give 150 additional toughness, vitality, conti damage and power, as well as all boons aside from stability, resistance and resolution on entering combat. The quickness and alacrity from this are a massive gain in damage too. The protocols will further apply 30 seconds of regeneration every time you enter combat, allowing you to stack up several minutes of it by using an enchanted Snow Diamond tonic repeatedly when out of combat. You can change to Chaotic Potency in Chaos when using protocols. Note that the protocols get removed when you enter story instances, fractals, raids and strikes. In story instances, or if you don't want the hassle of reapplying protocols, you can also abuse the synergy between Relic of the Cavalier and Blast from the Sky Scale to apply lots of Aegis, Resistance, Might and Quickness to yourself. It applies the boons on every hit of Blast. Last but not least, let's talk about how to deal with incoming conditions and control effects. It's also a reason why we use Twin Blade Restoration as the healing skill, as it cleanses 2 conditions, 1 per blade hit. For additional frequent condition cleanses, make use of another offhand weapon with a superior sigil of purity or a superior sigil of generosity. For incoming control effects, Bountiful Disillusionment applies stability to you every time you use a Shatter skill and additional stability to allies when you use Bladestone Distortion. When you do get disabled, you have 2 options for stun breaks. The first is Signet of Midnight, and this is the priority. Psychic Force is also another stun break, but it is used as part of the general gameplay loop, so prioritize Signet of Midnight for breaking stuns. Alright, you should now have a good idea on how Condition Virtuoso works, both in instance content and in open world gameplay. That is it for today. I hope this video was insightful for you and made you want to try Condition Virtuoso. Feel free to like and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm. See you next time and happy blade spamming.